Hey YouTube, thanks for being here. Today I want to talk about a subject that may be obvious to some Hunt Showdown players, but not all. Positioning. Strictly defined, positioning is the act of placing yourself in a location in order to bring your weapons to their full effectiveness so that you may neutralize or kill an enemy hunter. In less complicated terms, what positioning means in Hunt is being in the right place at the right time in order to win fights. Positioning is one of the most important things you can do in Hunt, or any FPS for that matter. There is more to your game in Hunt than just your positioning. However, it is the part of your game that is going to make the vast majority of your fights more winnable and ultimately more fun. There are many guides out there which seek to familiarize new players with weapons, mechanics, and items, but there's very little guidance on how to position yourself to actually win a fight. Positioning can be a difficult subject to discuss since the term can have many different meanings depending on the situation and context. For this video, I'm going to break down positioning into two parts: strategic and tactical. Strategic positioning is all the actions you take before you come into contact with an enemy hunter. Tactical positioning is all the actions you take after you come into contact with enemy hunters. For this video, I'm only going to be covering strategic positioning. Look for the tactical positioning video coming later this month. You should also be aware about what I mean when I say contact with the enemy. Contact with enemy hunters can mean many things. It can mean you're shooting at the enemy, you see them, you hear them, or you get shot by them. Essentially, contact means anything where your decision making will be affected by enemy actions. For these videos, contact is going to be the dividing line between the two approaches to positioning, strategic and tactical. Now, some qualifications before we get started. Let me say that this guide is not intended to be the only way to approach positioning in Hunt. For this video, I'm making a more theoretical approach, but there are thousands of ways to play this amazing game. So please feel free to disagree with me or agree with me in the comments below. I would be really interested in hearing what resonates with you and what does not. Again, I'm only covering strategic positioning in this video. So if you have any questions about tactical positioning, please save that for the next video. Okay, so let's talk about strategic positioning. The greatest consideration you will face in strategic positioning is the efficient use of the two most valuable assets you have: time and space. During a match, you should be constantly assessing where you need to be and how long you have to get there. If you want to quickly banish the boss, block an extract, or pursue an enemy team, you need to take into consideration the distance you need to cover and the time you have to do it in. The most common reasons that hunters don't balance time and space well are either that they are either too passive and always arrive late, or they're too aggressive and put themselves at risk of being enveloped. There are several traits and items that are available that can help you maximize the time and space you have. Greyhound allows you to sprint at full speeds for longer periods of time. Gator Legs allows you to move quickly through water. Determination can also help you cut through AI faster if you're running low on stamina. And Stamina Shots allow you unlimited running and melee stamina for up to 10 minutes. Your goal when you're deciding on how to use your time and space should be to position yourself around the map so that you can keep enemy teams reacting to your aggression while you are defended on your flanks by cover or open space. Keeping the enemy team reacting to your actions is called maintaining the initiative. You want the enemy team to react to you, not the other way around. This sounds simple, but it can be hard to achieve. You want your team to be the one capturing bounties, downing enemy players, pushing enemies in cover, maintaining map pressure, and dictating where fights happen. Maintaining the initiative allows you to decide what happens during a fight and gives you more control over the outcome. Once the initiative is lost, it is very hard to get back, so exploit as much as you can while you have it. One of the best ways of achieving initiative is to understand the respective advantages of offense and defense. Like almost every real-world conflict, being in the defensive is much more beneficial than being on the offense. Being in a defensive position offers you more opportunities to surprise an aggressive enemy team with effective fire, or giving yourself an elevated firing position and protection. This is true in pretty much every FPS, hence the common refrain against campers in shooting. Now, I'm not a fan of camping. Really, I don't think it makes for good content, nor do I believe that it expands your skills. But staying in the defensive is an effective strategy for newer or low-skilled players. As much as aggressive players like myself don't like it, it just is. So as much as you can when starting out, use the defensive to your advantage. Over time, however, as you develop your skills in Hunt, you should be looking to become more aggressive in your playstyle and looking to capture the initiative rather than only reacting to it. You will ultimately be more successful and take away more bounties on offense than you will on defense. This is not to say that experienced players still don't use the defensive to their advantage. One common tactic that my team and I employ is to get an enemy team to pursue us out of their cover. Being pursued is actually a huge advantage since you get to dictate where you will come into contact with the enemy next. Dragging an enemy into an open area and killing them while they think they have you on the run is incredibly rewarding. Okay, so let's say you spawn and hunt, what do? As soon as you spawn, you should immediately start thinking about your strategic position. First thing you want to do is press tab and conduct a quick map study. Note your spawn position. Note where the extracts are. Note how many bounties you're dealing with. When you spawn, there's a possibility that you may have spawned next to an enemy team, so be on guard for approaches from your left and right. Due to the distance between some spawn locations, spawn fights are more likely at certain points than others. Once you start to become familiar with the spawn locations, you will know which ones you can push for easy kills and which you should be cautious of. Often, when a match starts, other enemy hunters will make you aware of their position on the map when they start firing off weapons to kill nearby AI. Make note of the direction you hear these sounds coming from and remember them as potential hazards or ambush opportunities later in the game. Also, if you hear a lot of rapid gunfire, there is most likely a fight occurring. This could present the opportunity to third party. At the very least, one team has already been eliminated. After you gather all this initial information, you should make a note of the danger areas on the map and take steps to avoid them as much as possible. Danger areas are roads, open areas, rivers, swamps, or any other areas that provide no cover or concealment from enemy fire or vision. These are risks that you need to assess before crossing. As much as you can, you should select approaches that offer you ways to escape if you come under fire. Get in the habit of asking yourself, if I came under fire right now, would I have a good place to take cover? If the answer is no, you should most likely select another route. If you must cross a danger area with your team, ensure that you do so all at once as much as possible. Going across a danger area single file one at a time gives enemy players the opportunity to approach, set up, and open fire on a member of your team. If you do come under fire when you're crossing as a group, you will at least have the opportunity to return concentrated fire, and chances are most of your group will make it across since enemy fire will be split among multiple targets instead of a single target. You should also make use of these danger areas to set up your own ambushes. Downing an enemy hunter in the open is one of the most advantageous things you can do for your team and hunt. A downed enemy hunter in the open limits the enemy's team's available time and space and gives you wide latitude to apply pressure and push. Teams will typically not abandon their partners and will be forced to make every effort to protect them from burning. While covering a downed enemy hunter, your partners are free to maneuver into better firing positions to take out the rest of the team. When ambushing, ensure that you select proper firing positions and keep in mind the maximum effective range of all the weapons on your team. In order to ensure that your teammates can be effective in a fight, you want to engage the enemy at the range of the shortest maximum effective range on your team. If your team was running a Mosin, an Officer Carbine, and a Winfield Swift, you would want to engage the enemy only when the Officer Carbine can effectively engage at 92 meters, since this is the shortest maximum effective range of all your weapons. Note that what I'm saying is you should not always engage people at 92 meters with an Officer Carbine. It's a very long distance, and there are very few sightlines that can offer you effective opportunities to kill someone that far out with that weapon. What I want you to understand is that you should be looking to catch enemy hunters within ranges where your weapons are going to be the most effective. The last thing you want to do is to start firing a Mosin at a team 250 meters away if all the other members of your team could not effectively engage with you. Doing so would leave members of your team out of the fight, give your position away, and allow time for the enemy players to find a more advantageous position. Worst case scenario would be is that all the enemy team is running long ammunition weapons and your team would be really at a disadvantage. You want to be able to bring all your weapons to bear at the same time for maximum violence of action and the greatest chance for a positive outcome for your team. You should also keep maximum effective ranges in mind when selecting weapons for a match. Having all short-range weapons will put you at a severe disadvantage if you are forced to cross danger areas or suppress enemies advancing in the open. As well, having all long-range weapons will put you at a disadvantage when pushing into compounds or at close-range engagements. It is better to have a mix of effective ranges on your individual hunter, or adapt your team's positioning and playstyle to the maximum range of your weapons as appropriate. You should also try as much as you can to figure out what type of weapons the enemy players have based on the sounds of the shots that you hear on the map. Hunt's excellent sound design is some of the best ever in an FPS, and each weapon has its own distinctive sound. You can also practice telling the difference between weapons and sounds by going into the store menu, selecting a weapon, viewing it in 3D, and scrolling out to fire it at different distances. So now that I've gone over what you need to be thinking about when you're strategically moving around the map, let's talk about some of the most common strategic position archetypes that I've seen in Hunt. So archetype number 1, boss rushing. The strategy which is the most aggressive in Hunt is boss rushing. In boss rushing, your objective is to find the boss as quickly as you can, banish it, then extract, all the while fending off enemy hunters and AI. This is the idealized strategy in Hunt Showdown, and it is ultimately the strategy which will yield you the most profit in the game. You receive money for the clues you pick up, entering the boss lair, banishing the boss, killing enemy hunters, and extracting with the bounty. I also find this the most fun, since you're almost guaranteed to get into some scrappy fights along the way. When I play this way, I immediately use a stamina shot and a poison shot right after spawning, and my team goes to the closest compound. After we pick up the initial clue, we then move on to one of the sites where it has 2 clues available. There are 3 compounds per map, which have 2 clues each. On Stillwater Bayou, these are Blanchett Graves, Healing Waters Church, Port Reeker. On the Lawson Delta, these are Fort Karmic, Lawson Station, and Prison. The RNG of how the map goes dark can affect how fast the clues will lead you to the boss, but more often than not, if you're focused, you will arrive at the boss before other players. Once you banish and pick up the bounty, you will most likely have to fight your way out of the boss compound against enemy hunters and make a dash for the extract. On 2 bounty maps, you have to be strategic in thinking about which boss to rush. Unless you spawn right on top of a bounty, you should probably not try to go for the banish on a bounty which has a long way to go to the extract. There's a couple of reasons for this. 1, you are less likely to get pushed on a bounty that is far away from an extract than one that is close. Your goal on 2 bounty maps should be to secure both bounties. Go for the bounty that is closest to an extract, and if you feel like it later, you can banish and extract the isolated bounty. Second, picking up the bounty that far away from the extract marks you on the map and in dark sight. You are very vulnerable to enemy teams during this time, and 5 seconds of dark boost is not enough to keep you safe if the extraction is really far away. If you happen to spawn on an isolated bounty, kill the boss, banish it, and while it is banishing, move on to the other bounty that is closer to the extract. If another team comes and picks up that additional bounty, you have a lot of time to hunt them down and get it back. I highly recommend that you get good at boss rushing. Other than pushing shots, it's the best way to play the game in my opinion. There's no substitute for the feeling you get in Hunt after you kill all the players on the map and walk out of the map with the bounties. Archetype number 2, third partying. A strategy that is less aggressive and safer than boss rushing is trying to be the third party. With this strategy, your main course of action is to try to mop up fights as much as you can to eliminate teams on the map. Third partying requires you to track enemies and stay out of contact with them until they come into contact with other teams. While those other teams are fighting or just finishing fighting, you and your pals swoop in and put the lucky victors out of their misery. Okay, it isn't that bad most of the time. I actually third-party fights all the time. Catching a team off guard and injured is just too much of an opportunity to let go. You are essentially eliminating 2 teams for the price of 1. Why would you give that up? The problem with trying to third-party all the time is it doesn't make you much money doing it. You don't get the banish, you don't get clues, and you're more than likely not going to have the bounty in your hands when it counts. The best strategy in Hunt is a mixture of boss rushing and third partying in my opinion. Push for the bounty, take advantage of the opportunities to eliminate enemy teams where you can. This is definitely a solid strategy. Archetype number 3, extract/boss lair campers. Okay, for our final strategy, I'm taking aim at all those crouch walking, extract camping, concertina using newbie hunters out there. You guys know who you are. This strategy is the most common among new players and probably the most reviled in the game. It entails immediately crouching and slowly, like really slowly, working your way across the map, not making a sound and never making an effort to pick up clues or push the bounty. In this strategy, your main goal is to let other teams do all the fighting and killing of the boss so that you may, at the very last second, ambush them at the extract, firing your dual-wielding packs from 100 meters out, eyes closed, praying to RNGesus, just 1 headshot, please. If these players do stumble across the boss lair by complete accident, they will banish it and have no less than 4 concertina bombs and 3 shotguns to defend the boss lair. This strategy requires them to use the full 55 minutes to sit in the boss lair and not peek a single window the entire damn time. Okay, it isn't that bad. I mean, I get why new players do this. They're new, they're scared of the environment, they lack confidence in their own skill in the game, and they don't have a good understanding of the game's mechanics. This is not how you should be playing Hunt in teams. Playing this way in solo v trios is another story for another video. This strategy may from time to time result in a bounty here or there, but generally, you're not going to make much money if you approach the game like this. You're also not going to have much fun. But hey, it's your game, and you can play it how you want. I have no problem headshot and crouch walkers all night long. It makes for good content on the stream. Before I go, I have to note there are many more aspects about strategic positioning I could have also covered. I could have talked about how effectively judging distance, movement formations, weapon loadouts, and more would affect your strategic positioning, but I think I'll save those for later videos. Remember, this is part 1 of 2 videos on positioning for Hunt Showdown. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'm going to cover how to position yourself after you come into contact with enemy hunters. I will also include an entire duos game that illustrates all of these principles, both strategic and tactical. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below. I will see you next time for part 2.